and that's something I wanted to get into, because one of the things I noticed, because I was at that show and it was mind blowing. Like, I cannot stop talking about it. It's been what, 2 years?
Yeah,
And
at
I'm
least, yeah.
still like, I still have that glow. So I can only imagine what it was for you. Again, growing up here, going there as a kid, the thing that I noticed, you're coming down the aisle, man, and I want to hear your thoughts. You're coming down the aisle, you slip in, and you go straight for the king, Minoru Suzuki, of all people. So was that something you planned? Like, what? Like, I'm going in there, I'm going for the king. This is happening. Like, what was going through your head?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was like, I'm going to make the most of this, like I'm in a freaking Royal Rumble, like the first match on the card, but I'm in a Royal Rumble with freaking Minoru Suzuki and, Jushin Liger, and all these other guys at like super legends. And especially for me, Minoru Suzuki is like the guy. So I wasn't going to miss that chance. Yeah, I was like, it was like meant to be. It's like so absurd that it doesn't even seem real, but somehow it's meant to be. Like, you're walking down the aisle and I was just laser focused on, the man. And as soon as I slid in there, I was like, yeah, this is happening. There's no other choice. It was like it was a singles match to me. I know he didn't feel that way. I caught him off guard, but for me, it was like, there's only one guy in this ring as far as I'm concerned. So I'm glad I got to have that moment.
It's the funniest thing, because I'm watching as a fan, and in the beginning of the show, I was up high. Later on, we got transferred down, so I'm up there and I'm watching you, and I'm going, "Oh my God, he's no, don't go to him!" Like, all people, not him. No, but one last question about New York, and then I'll let Randy take over, because I've been taking so much of your time. You live here now, and I wanted to harken back 2 years. You're walking your dog, right? and he has a coat on. You just mind your own business, walking the dog, and you see your dog's doppelganger. I thought this was a great thing to bring up on the podcast so people can get to know you. And what the hell happened? Like, your words, your story. Like,
that's amazing. I can't believe you brought that up. This is like serendipity or whatever, like synchronicity. Like, that's been coming up in my life a lot recently, that story. And like you said, it was years ago, but it's been coming up a lot because, like, to give the backstory, I was at one of my like regular places to get like coffee and stuff like that. And so I was getting coffee and a bagel and all that. And then this guy tells me like, oh, like I just saw a dog that like looked exactly like that. But like, did you just take that dog from somebody or something? And I was like, no, this is my dog. Like, we've been here. And he's like, wow, that's crazy. And I was just like, all right, whatever. This guy's kind of weird. Like, that's kind of a crazy thing to say. No way that this dog was that similar to some other dog. And so I step outside and I look down the block, and sure enough, I see like the exact same dog in like the exact same coat coming at me. It's like the exact same, and they like come face to face and they sniff and all that, which blew my mind. It was crazy. But then, so years later, we just found out that was before I met my girlfriend that I'm with right now, and she put it together that she knows the person that has that dog this whole time. Like, it's like, yeah, it's like the boyfriend of one of her like acquaintances or something like that. And so it's just like, we're still talking about New York, but it's one of those things where it's like the smallest big city in the world, where like you always see the same people that no matter where you are, and everybody knows everybody somehow. So yeah, it's like I know who this was now, and I've like taken that story full circle in my mind and made the connection.
So the PC first started off as PC Panscorp, and then it evolved into the PCA, the Panscorp agency. Generally, I mean, it started as pretty much like a shoot, like it's just people. We'll start off with me and Carlos and Mike Law, because Mike Law was one of the first people I actually met in IWF. We were the idiots who were the first to the building at like 10, 11 a.m., standing there like idiots. But we became friends, and he's one of my best friends to date. But it started out like, me and him and Carlos, and just guys who I thought were overlooked, underutilized. And I wanted to help give them a voice and get, whatever little bit I could add to their talent that maybe that was missing, I would help, either talk to management or as add to their characters. So started off with them. One of the first guys in IWF I fell in love with watching was the late Spiral, Brandon Kaplan.
Spiral was a very good wrestler, dude. I remember. Bro.
Yeah, great wrestler and just so natural charisma. And he was just a great guy. But like seeing the way he came to do those moves, plus he had a character. Yeah. And just so much natural charisma, like to see that at that level, it's like, holy shit, like this guy is fantastic. And I would always just like talk to him briefly. I'm just like, dude, like you're like this guy's living for you, bro. And that's always like, why don't you go? Like, yeah, why don't you come out with me one day? Like, I used to work with. I'm like, yeah, dude, I would love for you to join the PCA. So then, and then it just grew into, which it worked. That's why I started. Then it grew to an agency. So it gives me leeway when I have so many different members, and it grew to so many, but interchangeable if I needed to be for different companies. So
That is awesome, dude.
Would you ever consider the ultimate X match?
That's a hard one.
It's literally a hard one. It's a hard match. It's a hard bump to fall from. That's a scary scenario, man.
Not being to put you on the spot, but
because I mean, I've heard it before where fans, like going into Bound for Glory, fans were just like, "Oh, please let this be, the ultimate X match," and I was like, why you want to make this more difficult for me? I don't know whose side you're on with this. I thought, we were cool. I thought you were a Chris Bay fan. I thought you wanted to see me win, not, hurt myself. But if it's something that people want to see, I'm down for it, especially because I know with my athleticism and with my creativity, I'd be able to give people something super original that they haven't seen yet in an Ultimate X match, and they could go in the highlights and, give someone else, the next crop, something. Excuse me, no rhyme intended. It'll give the next crop something top, because we'll just make some more history. And if I'm the one to bring it back, I'll take the credit for that too.
Well, you said to the business side. Can you talk about that part of it, getting it to be a business where it is a financial win for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, the key is first you've got to have the great content that people want to hear, because if you've got the best business model but you don't have an audience, what is there to do? So you've got to have an audience first, and once you've got that, you've got to have the right sort of what I would call back end. And Westwood One has been a fantastic partner for us. They have a great sales division, and we still sell ads direct over at advertisewithconrad.com. So, you come up with all these different revenue streams. You got to have merch, you got to have live shows, you got to have a pay site, you got to have, your general ad sales, you got to have direct ad sales. So when you look through all of this, and then you sprinkle in YouTube monetization too, you can get paid 5 or 6 or maybe 7 different ways through podcasting. And I do business for a living. I'm at my office right now. It's a different setup than what everybody sees when I'm podcasting my shows. So my brain definitely works in the business world as far as, okay, this is a good idea and it's fun, but how do we make money with it? And by the way, that's created a lot of jobs. We don't talk about that enough, but we've got, at least 12 full-time people working on this enterprise that we've built here. And those are people who have, incomes now to support their families. So I can't tell you how many people, have a better life because of this podcast financially, or these podcasts rather.
Yeah, because it's a full-time job, 5 shows a week. It's
Absolutely
amazing. So you said you have 12 people. Can you name a couple of, what did they do?
Yeah. So Stan helps us with research. So does Derek and Chris. We've got 3 folks who help us with research. We've got Steve, who runs our YouTube, Ryan, who works our merch, Evan, who handles all things ad-free shows. Of course, everybody knows Dave Silva, who does all of our graphics. Matt Kuhn does all of our audio engineering stuff. And then Chris McDonald does all of our video. So on and on and on. We've also created, paying gigs for all the extra bonus content over at ad-free shows. So guys like Gerald Briscoe and Mike Chioda, and we've had special guests like Francine, and of course Medusa's on there, and Rebel. And as we continue to expand the footprint, there's a real payroll here now. And I'm fine with that, by the way. I'm trying to give a unique approach and a unique look and create a different experience and make it sort of all encompassing. And the latest acquisition is Bruce Mitchell, who's been with the Torch for decades. And we're going to do like an old school hotline style update every single day. So just like we used to call 1-900-909-9900. Well, now you're going to get the old school hotline feel. And everything we talk about on my shows is all nostalgia. So this will be the first time we're talking about some current stuff. But that could be challenging since I've got people working in every company. Politically, nobody wants to, sort of spread trade secrets. However, there is a thirst for that. So if you can't beat them, join them, I suppose. And Bruce Mitchell will be answering that age-old Jim Barnett question, what's the dirt?
I remember when I was a kid, like I would watch Shawn Michaels. This was in the 90s, and I would go nuts about him, right? Like that was my vision of myself.
We're old. We're
pro
old.
wrestling.
Okay, wait, we're
Yeah.
old. So
Like I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I wanted the ladies. I wanted to do all that stuff. Like, who did you grow up idolizing like that?
Well, I mean, if it's not obvious, like one of them is the Hardy Boys, Jeff Hardy, especially. But as far back as like I can remember, like the first person that really caught my attention was Sting. But it was when he like did the Crow, so like the black and white face paint. I'm a big comic book fan, so like Batman and all that stuff. I'm into like the dark superheroes, the dark stories. So like Sting was really, as far back as I can remember, Sting was really the first one I really like went back and watched, because like just the storytelling of him with just, he didn't say a word for like a whole year, and you just knew his like expression just with that blank face he had. Like to me, I was like, oh dude, that's excuse my French, I was like, that's fucking awesome. Like,
it was.
That's
It was.
amazing. And then
Uh-huh.
and then of course with Jeff, like growing up on the Hardy Boys and stuff, like Jeff being as crazy as he is, like I'm an adrenaline junkie, daredevil myself. So seeing what he did, I was like, oh, I want to be that dude right there.
Agent, was that really hard to transition into?
No, because I've always helped people anyway. You know, I've always helped people. And, you know, like even in WWE, sometimes my first run there, I would help agent like dark matches, because some of the dark matches, there was no like hands-on agenting back then, like for some of the local talent and stuff like that.
Wow, okay.
I said I'd already did little things like that. And then in whatever the year was when I was an agent at TNA, I had tore my ACL, and that's how that came about, because I wasn't physically active at the time, and they needed agents, and apparently my name kept coming up. And, you know, because I was doing Omega at the time too, in North Carolina, and we really kind of changed the face of the indie scene in North Carolina with like, I would just want guys to watch what I do at my show. I'm not trying to run any of these little companies out of business. I just want you to be better. You know, watch what we do, be better. Here's how you do it. And it really improved the whole landscape of North Carolina, and the companies that learned from it really started booming. So I was, you know, I mean, and I've always kind of had a good reputation in the business. You know, I have my asshole moments for sure, you know, like we all do, but overall my reputation is pretty solid. So they brought me in as an agent, and initially I said, like, they offered me a job the first weekend, and I said, let me see if I'm actually going to like this first. You know, it's like, I said no at first, you know, not no, but like, let's just pump the brakes. But then I came back for a couple more tapings, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I really enjoy it. And, you know, then it kind of fast forwarded. I got back fully active in the indie scene as wrestling. They brought me up to the PC. WWE called me, wanted me to come down to train at the PC as a coach. And I was like, okay, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be a producer, but I actually enjoyed coaching a lot more than I thought I would. Because when I was younger, I just didn't have the patience to train people. You know, you got to have a lot of patience to do that shit, because the people that don't pick it up right away, I just get frustrated with, you know, because for me, it wasn't difficult for me, you know. And I think that's why Michael Jordan isn't a good owner, because basketball was so easy for him. He doesn't understand that it's not easy for everybody, you know. And so when I was younger, trying to help train people here and there, I wasn't good, but I got a little bit more patience in my older age. And then the coaching thing led to the producer gig, and I really enjoyed that, and I was having a blast until the COVID hit and we all got furloughed.
Until the whole world went upside down, right?
Yeah.
Who would have saw that coming? It's like we were at the top of the world wrestling wise, you know.
Well, there were people that were warning the government for years and years. Those people.
Yeah.
Those people started coming.
Yeah. I definitely have to ask too, going back to the talking shop and also you being a producer, how important is it for the wrestlers to be creative and being able to put their ideas out there? May not be able to be used all the time, but be able to have that imagination and try to bring something inside of them to the forefront to make it on the camera.
I mean, I think that's very important, you know, but the flip side is that some wrestlers aren't creative and they think they are. And therein lies your problem. Like it's like, you know, you always hear this conversation about scripted promos. Like there's this, you know, really kind of like thought process that's scripted promos are. See, is that not everybody's good at doing promos. You know, you guys have been to indie shows and you've seen some of these promos, and you're like, Jesus Christ, that was terrible. You know, and even in WWE and a couple of live events, we would let the people go out there, all right, just go out there and cut a little promo and give them that free reign. And it was like, Jesus Christ, that was rotten. You know, so not everybody's good at that. And you got to experiment with these talents to figure out which ones are good, which ones can you give bullet points to, and they can go and make it their own and make it better, because there are people that can do that, but not everyone can. And, you know, when those scripts are turned in, when those writers turn in those scripts to Vince McMahon, they can't have these big gaps of blank pages where a promo is supposed to be. And then, because Vince is going to go, well, what is this? He's going to say whatever he wants. Vince is going to go, what the fuck are you talking about? What is the promo going to be about? You know, so they kind of have to script something. They've got to write something on the paper, you know. And then if the talent is good enough, they can make it their own. But generally, if the talent isn't good enough, or they're saying some random shit that doesn't have anything to do with anything, or might get the company in trouble, because some talents don't realize that, like especially with WWE, it's a publicly traded company. You can't go out there and just drop a bunch of F-bombs and say whatever you want, this, that, and the other. You know, you got to be careful about that. But I think the most successful talents generally are very creative and very hands-on with what they do. And the more over you get, the more creative freedom you get. You know, like any job, when you start in on those lower levels, you got to do what the fuck you say until you climb the ranks and the ladders. I mean, it's very similar to just about every other job out there in that aspect.
That makes sense. I've had jobs where no one trusted me, and after 5-6 years, they're like, all right, you're the man, like, get it done.
Yeah.
But
yeah, even when I went back, like all the success I had before as a producer, like I would say some ideas and they would just keep questioning me. And I wanted to go, y'all know I've done this shit before, right?
Yeah.
And I never fucking struck out. Even some of the dumb shit that y'all gave me, I still hit home runs with. How about y'all just let me do my fucking thing and leave me alone? But because I was still such a new producer there, you still like at the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak.
Yeah, you got to pay your dues, and that's with everything.
I had to pay more dues. That's fucking ridiculous.
You had to go through a situation when you were with WWE. I think it was maybe around 06, around 05, 06. You went from the Hurricane character back to be Gregory Helms. You went with something that was successful and popular, and you evolved your character and your skill. How difficult is it for, not what was it for you, but also for current talent to make that change of getting out of that comfort zone with something and trying something new, something similar to like what Roman was doing, where Roman was pushed as the top babyface, but now is the top heel. You had to go through a transition of being a babyface into a heel. What was that like, and what advice do you give to the younger talent who try to change their character around like that?
It wasn't hard for me, because I had been a heel in the indies, and I was always, when I was a heel, I wanted to actually be a legit heel, not a tweener. 3 count was kind of a tweener heel to a degree, but like the stuff I did on the indies, I wanted people to hate me. I wanted them to, not buy my merch. If you see a heel and people are buying this merch, that's not a heel, that's a tweener. Tweener used to be a bad thing, and it really shouldn't be anymore. It's just different. So I knew I could do it. It wasn't a matter of whether I could do it or not. I just had to get the company to understand what exactly it was I was doing. And that was difficult at times. But as far as my in-ring work, like as the Hurricane, I kind of had to wrestle down. If you watch me as Sugar Shane, I'm one of the best light heavyweights in the world. I come to WWE, I got a cape and a mask on. I can't wrestle like Sugar Shane anymore because the audience, they weren't accepting it. Because I would try these things on live events. I would try to go out there and wrestle just like Sugar Shane, and they didn't give a fuck. They wanted to pose. They wanted to thumb. They wanted me to try to choke slam. I'm dressed like a superhero, so I needed more character and personality and not just a flip-flop-fly. It didn't work for that character. Mm-hmm. And the thing about the Hurricane is, too, I was having so much fun doing it. Like, I knew the limitations. They were never going to make the Hurricane the world champion. They weren't. Maybe now, because of the success of the superhero movies in Hollywood, maybe it would have had a better chance today. But back then, there was still a lot of people, and it was still a kind of a bigger guy's business back then, too. So there's a couple things that were working against me. So I knew the limitations of the character, but also I was having so much fun, whereas I saw the top guys being fucking miserable all the time. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm having fun and I'm happy. They're miserable as shit. So what do I do here? You know, but I felt like I had a good run, and I really kind of plateaued at a point where, okay, they're not going to do anything else after this Rosie run. With the tag team championships, we won those, and that's my favorite championship run. And then they took them off of us for another experiment of Cade and Murdoch, which might have been the least over team we ever fucking worked up there. And it was just like, really? Another gimmick like this? And so, and in this time too, you know, Flair was always kind of a mentor for me. And Flair was just like, you're too good for this gimmick. And like, he said that to me like a couple years before the turn. But it was something that had stuck with me, because me and Flair had a pretty good run there for a little while. We worked on TV a couple times on live events, and just that stuck with me. You know, you're too good for this gimmick. And I'm like, man. And so that's what the Gregory Helms thing was. It was just a reminder of them of what I could do. Mm-hmm. And it worked so much that after one of my matches, Arn Anderson came up to me and he goes, damn, kid, I forgot how good you were. And I remember going, thank you, sir. And then he walked away, and I was like, what does that mean? Did they not realize that the Hurricane was just a character, that I was wrestling like that for a reason? You know,
I think after seeing it for so long, you start to forget.
Yeah,
you know, like,
you do. It happened to Jerry Lawler. Like, I see it now more so in retrospect. I mean, Jerry was as over could be. And then he got so good at the comedy, which is what I did too. Mm-hmm. I got so good at the comedy that they forgot that I could wrestle. And then when they would try comedy with other people and it would be a dud, they're like, man, well, this Hurricane is really funny. Let's just keep putting him in these comedy situations. And then not letting me be that performer. So I was a victim of my own success, which is a weird thing, comedic success, because not everybody can be funny. We see it all the time, people trying to be funny, and it's just fucking not. And that's the worst. The worst thing is when you're trying to be funny and it bombs.
Do you think that's a fair balance? That this is probably the most fun that you're having right now in professional wrestling?
Yes, because I had great runs when I was younger, but I was very immature and very a lack of wisdom, maturity, and experience. When you're suddenly on top of the world and you're 25 years old, and you have to make like business decision, like really wrestling business decision, as like, okay, is it okay? Okay, is that good for my career, or is it going to bring my career up there, or it's going to, decrease my value as an athlete, or increase my value as an athlete? You get really confused at a young age, at all ages, but because you always want to increase your value in the business as a performer, as an athlete. But in the meantime, you have to be a good businessman too. Well, if you became a champion, and if I know that I've done like thousands of jobs, like when I started in this business, so you can't compare year for year. You probably have to balance it out from the beginning, all the way up to today, things like that. But I know, like, I had so much confusion, like at different point when I was younger, and I was also, I would say, a little bit in a toxic relationship as far as my tag team partner with me and Jacques. Like, at some point, this was really tough. I was very unhappy. But my latest run until now, I'm having like a great time. I've been able to enjoy like every second of it, like every single second of it. Like, I really was able to realize what I'm going through and appreciating every second of it, and just fully being there, So at a younger age, when I was the tag team champion, then I wanted to become the Intercontinental champion or the world champion. So I was happy for a little while. Then I would run after, another piece of carrot until, I would think that would make me happy. And then I would run. So basically my barometer of happiness was based on my success in the business. As is now is my life is my barometer of happiness. Like I've got to be happy every day, and it just makes my career better. It's totally opposite to what it was. But I had to go through some bad times and getting fired a few times and quitting a few times and going through some tough decisions and just living and learning, basically. It was just trying to, at the end of the day, I was always trying to look at myself in the mirror and what I did wrong and take full responsibilities for every wrong decision that I made, and not blaming on the company, the other guys, or just be accountable for everything.